Okay, now we have our basic models defined, we can go ahead and build the data access layer. So we're going to go to the DAL project, and you'll notice I've created two folders, a data folder and a repositories folder. I'll come to that in a second, but the first thing we need to do is install Entity Framework. So the way we do that is if we right click the project and say manage NuGet packages. What this does is it brings up a way to add third-party packages into our solution. So if we click on the online, it will go out and bring back all the available packages that we can get, but there's quite a lot, so what we can do here is start searching. So we want Entity Framework, as we can see there. Now version 6.11 is the one we want, and we can see it's being created by Microsoft, so we simply click install, accept the license agreement, and there it is installed. So what that has done is added in these two additional libraries here into our project. We also need to add in a link to our model. So again, I'll just show you that. We right click references, add reference, solution, and we can see the model, and this is so that our data access layer can understand and see all the classes within our model project. While we're at it, let's just add the contracts folder, the contracts project, because we'll be using that as well shortly. Okay, so that's now all in. So the first thing we need to do is create what is called a data context. Now the data context is a way of telling Entity Framework which models we want to map to a particular table. So I've simply created a class called data context, and what I've done is I've added this onto the end of my class, which is :db context. Now at the moment it doesn't know what that is, but because we've added the Entity Framework package, I can right click, say resolve, and click that. So now it knows what it is that I'm looking for. Now what this is doing is the : is saying implement the DB context, and that is important so that Entity Framework knows how to handle what it is we're trying to make it do. So what we need to do, we need to tell it here which models need to have a corresponding table. So again, if you can see, it can't find any of these, so if I just right click, resolve, and they've all turned blue to show that it's now found them. And what this is basically saying is, for a DB set of product, we will expose a property called products, and that will allow us to get to our products table underneath the data context. A point to mention is that the actual table names by default is the pluralized model. So in this case it's product becomes products, order becomes orders, order item becomes order items. It has nothing to do with what I've named them here. I have just named them that because I know that is what they will be called in the tables, and therefore it just gives us consistency throughout the project. If you did want to change the actual table name that you're using, what you do is you go to your actual model definition, and we decorate it with table and give it a table name. If I just resolve that, and what that will do is when Entity Framework comes to create the table, it will create it and call it customer table, but we don't really want to do that, so I'll just remove that. Okay, so now we've done all that, what does it actually mean? Well, I'll show you by jumping to our web project. The first thing I need to do is add references to our data access layer, and our model, again, we'll add in the contracts for future use. And what I could now do is, if I went into one of the controllers, I can now create a link, a reference to the data context. New data context. Oops. And now I can access products, customers, order items, and orders, and it's picking all that up from this definition here. Like I say, Entity Framework itself takes care of actually hooking each of these up to the individual tables. This is just giving us the access that we want. Now we could just go from there and access everything directly through the data context, but that means everything that we want to do would be done within our controller, using accessing the Entity Framework directly via the data context. But that's not a very good way, a very good pattern, because we don't get our abstraction, we don't get our separation that we're after in order to adhere to solid principles. So what we need to do is abstract the entire data context away, and we do that using repositories. So if I take this out and go back to my DAL there, we shall see that we've got this repositories folder. Now we're going to have one repository for every table that we want to access. So for example, we've got a product repository here. If we just resolve that, and what this does is this hides the data context away behind this class, and in here we define all our methods for actually interacting with the data underneath. So for example, find by ID, get a list of all products, insert product, update product, and so on. Now each of these methods are pretty common across every product what we wanted to do. So what we could do is create a repository for each one and copy and paste all that in. But then there is a problem, well, what if we want to change some of this to later date? We then need to go through each one again and update it accordingly. So again, what we're going to use now is something called abstraction.